Welcome back to the channel. Friends, have you ever asked yourself, when the people you love most turn their backs on you, is it the end of the road, or the beginning of a brilliant new chapter? They say, the older the ginger, the spicier it gets, but in today's story, we'll see that the older the ginger, the richer and more resilient it becomes. Today, I'm taking you to the wild red earth of the Australian outback to listen to a modern fable about pride, betrayal, and the inescapable law of karma. If you love justice and want to feed your soul with some vitamin wisdom, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell down below. It's completely free, but the knowledge you gain is priceless, and who knows, subscribing might just make your karma as green and lush as the fields in this story. Let's get started. Long ago, or perhaps not so long ago, on a small farm nestled in the scorching Australian bush, lived an old woman named Maggie. She had worked all her life under the harsh sun with her late husband, a strong man, a true Aussie battler. They once owned large lands, cornfields, and many animals. They toiled from before the sun came up until the Southern Cross shone bright in the sky. But time is cruel. After her husband passed away, life became hard. Maggie's knees hurt, and she moved slowly like an old koala. She lived with her daughter, Kylie, and her son-in-law, Shane. Kylie, the daughter she once cradled, had changed completely. She was impatient and often angry, like a summer dust storm. Shane, the son-in-law, was a classic bludger, lazy person. He was lazy and slept most of the day, only waking up when the smell of barbecue drifted over from the neighbors. Even though she was tired, the old woman still tried to help around the house. But one night, in the quiet darkness of the bush, the young couple whispered their plans. "If we continue like this, we will starve," the husband said. Kylie replied coldly, "Mother must leave, we need this house for ourselves." The next morning, as the first light hit the gum trees, Maggie was woken by loud noises. She walked outside and was shocked to see her clothes, blankets, and shoes thrown onto the dusty ground. Kylie stood there, cold and silent. "Mother, you must leave," she said without even looking at her. Maggie's hands shook as she held onto the worn wooden doorframe. "This is my own house," she whispered. But the door closed in her face. The poor old woman sat on the step and cried until evening. However, there was one thing that greedy couple didn't know. Maggie and her late husband, being thrifty farmers, had saved money for years. She hadn't put it in a bank, but hid it the old-fashioned way, in a stone box near the old corral, where the sheepdogs used to rest. That night, under the silver moonlight, she went there, moved the stones, and found her savings. Holding the money, a spark of hope returned to her eyes. She realized she could start again. Maggie walked to the next village. A kind farm family, showing true Aussie hospitality, recognized her and gave her food, tea, and a small room for the night. The next morning, with the determination of someone who has weathered many storms, she asked, "Is there land for sale?" "Yes, there is," they said. She used her life savings to buy a good piece of land. With help from neighbors, displaying that great spirit of mateship, she built a strong wooden house. She planted corn, kept chickens, and lived a peaceful life. Nearby, there was a young neighbor boy. He often helped her with chores. He was respectful and kind, treating her like his own grandmother. Meanwhile, back at the old house, Kylie and Shane's lives were falling apart. Because they were lazy and refused to do any hard work, they grew poorer. Their house slowly broke down, and their yard filled with weeds. They argued often, blaming each other, but they still believed the old woman had nothing. One day, hunger forced Shane to walk far to find a job. He crossed the dusty red roads until he reached a beautiful new farm. He knocked on the door. The door opened. Maggie stood there, calm and dignified. "You," he said, shocked. "Yes," she replied calmly. The son-in-law hung his head and asked for work, admitting he had no money and no food. Maggie looked at him with pity. She agreed to hire him, but with one strict condition. "You must not tell my daughter that this farm is mine." Shane nodded quickly. "I promise." He worked hard every day on her fields. Maggie never treated him badly. She only asked one question: "How is my daughter?" He always answered, "She is fine," even though she was not. But secrets in small towns don't last long. One morning, the daughter followed him. She was surprised to see such a big, lush farm. She stormed into the yard and froze when she saw her mother commanding the work. "Mother! You have all this while I suffer," she shouted, jealousy clouding her mind. Maggie looked at her daughter, her eyes no longer holding the weakness of the past. "When you finish shouting, speak to me," she said quietly. Kylie demanded money, the house, anything she could get. Maggie sighed, gave her only a few coins, and closed the door. That was the last time she opened her door to their greed. The couple wasted the money quickly. They soon sold their old house and land, living day by day. In their minds, they held onto a cowardly hope. "The old woman will pass away soon, and we will inherit this massive farm." But they were wrong. Maggie, with the wisdom of someone who understood human nature, had already made her decision. She wrote a clear will. "My farm will go to the young boy who helped me when I had no one. My daughter shall receive nothing." When Maggie passed away, the village buried her with respect. Kylie and Shane rushed over to claim the farm. But the neighbors and the lawyer told them the truth. Everything now belonged to the boy. Shocked and ashamed, the couple left the village. No one saw them again. Perhaps they drifted to some far-off place, carrying the heavy lesson of gratitude they had ignored all their lives. My friends, Maggie's story in the harsh Australian bush has ended, but its echoes remain. From this story, we learn some vital lessons. 1. Your value is not decided by those who mistreat you. Even when pushed down by her own family, Maggie didn't break. She stood up and rebuilt from scratch. 2. Kindness grows, greed destroys. The neighbor boy, through simple acts of selfless help, inherited a fortune. Meanwhile, the daughter and son-in-law lost everything due to their greed and laziness. 3. You can rise again, no matter how old you are or how hard life gets. With courage and self-respect, you can rebuild your life. Choose the path of strength, dignity, and kindness. Be like the wildflowers in the desert. The harsher the sun, the stronger they bloom. If you found this story meaningful, please give it a like and share it with those you cherish. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe right now. Why? Because our channel doesn't just tell stories. We help you become wiser every day in the most joyful way possible. See you in the next video with more amazing stories. Goodbye and good day, mate.